our next speaker is Neil McKay from Places for People, and I'm just scanning the audience now to see where Neil is. Do you want to come and join us, Neil? Just while Neil's making his way up here, I just wanted to let you know that unfortunately we've had an announcement about Councillor Tom Reynard from Bristol City Council. He's had a very sudden and unexpected bereavement this morning, we understand, so we send him and his family our very best wishes. So we've had to very quickly reconstitute the plenary panel for this afternoon, and I'll make an announcement about that a little bit later. But just to reiterate, best wishes to Tom and his family. So I'm going to hand over now to Neil McKay from Places for People. So Neil works within the business development function at Places for People as commercial lead for an entity called Places for People Living Plus, which is the supported living arm of Places for People group, which is a very, very large group, as we're coming to understand more and more. So Neil has an interesting background, having initially been an accountant with a background in modelling. So I think very interesting experience to draw on there, Neil, in relation to this question around social value. And has a background in modelling, testing and appraising development opportunities. Neil also has a strong understanding of the financial challenges faced by registered providers. So following a move into business development, Neil led Places for People Living Plus's first exploration in modular development and project managed a 6-unit development in Cambridgeshire that completed last year. So following the success of that, Places for People is committed to a broader rollout of this more accessible form of housing. Very pleased to say, I hadn't read this bit until now, Neil, with Agile Homes serving as its preferred supplier. My goodness me. Breaking news. Anyway, very, very welcome. Amazing. So without further ado, Neil, I'm going to hand over to you and look forward to hearing what you have to say.
So thanks, Linda. Just make sure everyone can hear me okay. Yep, lovely. I'm Neil McKay. I do understand that there's an eccentric imposter somewhere in the building masquerading as me, but pay no mind to him. I'm Neil. I'd just like to start by saying how engaging all the speakers have been and how fantastic the slides have been so far. They've all been brilliant. They've set a really high bar for the rest of us. For Juliet, who's going to follow me, don't worry, I'm about to lower it. I'm not a public speaker, so you can imagine my relief this morning when I learned that I wouldn't be the only circus act performing today. But humour aside, I'm here today to discuss a serious matter, and that is how my organisation, Places for People, is trying to contribute to solving the housing crisis by accelerating delivery of homes through MMC. As such a large registered provider, we have an obligation, responsibility and a drive to create sustainable communities. But if we can do that in a way that delivers huge environmental, climate and societal related benefits, then why wouldn't we seek to push and prioritise those options? Okay, so I just think it would be worth me giving you a little bit more about Places for People Group, for those who don't know. We are a leading affordable homes-led placemaker. We create and manage thriving communities that our customers are proud to call home and are sustainable, economically, socially and environmentally. Just to give you a little idea of scale, over 500,000 people live in our homes and 300,000 people visit our leisure centres every week. We aim to create social impact and make a difference through all our work for our customers and our communities across the UK. Through our Community Investment Fund, we've invested almost 950,000 in 93 local and national projects in the last year. And our organisation's award-winning placemaking, property investment, development and management companies are active throughout the UK. We own or manage more than 230,000 homes. We operate over 100 leisure facilities. We employ over 9,000 colleagues and will deliver circa 6,000 affordable homes over the next 10 years through our strategic partnership with Homes England. Just want to take that one step further and talk very briefly about Places for People Living Plus. As Linda mentioned, I work within our supported housing business, Places for People Living Plus. We are the group's specialist supported living provider. We offer homeless people, including refugees, families, and people with complex needs, a safe space to live. The support we give helps to improve the confidence and peace of mind vulnerable people need to live more independently and play a positive role in their community. We're committed to doing this. We also build new homes as well as buying and converting existing ones. We then work with commissioning agencies, with specialist care partners, external investors to create tailored services and develop initiatives to help put people back on their feet. In my segment, what I'd like to do now is share the innovative approach that we're taking towards solving homelessness and the housing crisis. And as part of that approach, I'll present what we've identified to be the key considerations and challenges associated with doing that as a registered provider. I'm going to do this by way of reference to a case study initially of the recently completed MMC development that Linda referenced for me, as that was really the catalyst for our journey onto MMC. Just before I go into some of the detail, it is important to recognise and highlight that this was a very specific modular application for a supported development, and so while some of this will have a wider application for general needs housing, some elements may not be as relevant. Apologies, I'm just behind on the slides. So a little bit of scene setting around our case study. It relates to a successful modular development of 6 homes in Wisbech, Finland, and what I'd like to do is take you through some of the detail of how this opportunity came around. So I'm going to cast us back to March 2020. It's the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the government has just launched its Everyone In campaign. That required local authorities to take urgent action to house rough sleepers or those at risk of rough sleeping in order to protect people's health and reduce wider transmission of COVID-19. That campaign required self-contained rooms or rooms with sort of minimal sharing of facilities, which was to allow people to practice social distancing and self-isolate. That was a success initially, and in the months that followed, the campaign was to be tied in with and taken forward by the MHCLG, which is now the Department for Levelling Up, under an initiative called the Next Steps Accommodation Programme, which I'm sure many of you in the room are familiar with. That programme was to make available financial resources needed to support local authorities and partners to prevent those people who had been housed during the early stages from returning to the streets. Given the immediacy of the response required and the timescales which were set as part of the campaign, hotels, B&Bs, you may recall, were the primary focus and were covered heavily in the press. And whilst we did very quickly pick up the conversations and engage with numerous local authorities, I think the lack of readily available and appropriate accommodation alongside the timescales associated with the funding meant we just weren't able to make an application. When that programme resurfaced in March or April of 2021, it did so as the Rough Sleeps Accommodation Programme, with a significant remaining capital and revenue fund and a more achievable timeline, but with that same focus on additionality. It's at that point that we talked about internally our stars aligning, because we previously engaged with Fenland District Council, and upon reopening those lines of communication, we identified a solution to propose an MMC, opportunity to propose an MMC solution in the area to create 6 modular homes on an existing site that we owned. Fenland were able to recommend a project partner in Alia Impact, and they in turn recommended an MMC builder in New Meaning Foundation, a brilliant organisation with a fantastic mission to employ former homeless individuals. John Evans, who leads New Meaning Foundation, is in attendance today. So I would encourage everybody to talk to John about his foundation's mission. John, if you wouldn't just mind making yourself known by a wave of the hand. Thank you. Okay, bear with me a second. So Places for People had an existing relationship with the Ferry Project. They're a Wisbech-based charity dealing with homelessness. So with the key partners in place and with access to funding, support from Homes England, the Department of Levelling Up, we felt we had a viable project, and that modern methods of construction represented our most realistic model for meeting this demand within the 8 to 9 month time frame that was available. And so as we've sort of coined it within the business, the stars aligned for us. You know, a collection of collaborating partners all pulling in the same direction for a collective goal. And so very briefly, a bit of a project overview. Our proposal was simple. As I'd said, it was to supply 6 modular homes on a disused car park in Mill Close, Wisbech, for rough sleepers to meet identified needs in a significant rough sleeping population that does exist in Finland. Support to everyone placed in the properties was to be provided through the Ferry Project I've just referenced. The homes would be supported move-on homes for rough sleepers and those at risk of rough sleeping, and would provide a safe environment for up to 2 years prior to moving into general needs accommodation with continued support if required. In terms of some local context for you, Fenland District Council stated that with a dedicated local partnership and with the advice of the MHCLG, they'd been able to place 50 clients into move-on accommodation at that time, but they still had around 20 remaining clients which they had to find solutions for, so we obviously accounted for 6 of those. In terms of our costing, our total development cost was approximately at that time £450,000, so approximately 75k per unit. I think it's really important to note that in our more recent explorations, that figure has increased significantly due to challenges associated with the current economic climate. Our timeline, as John can testify to, was challenging. Our application went in late June. We heard back in August, and delivery was required by the following March, 31st of March 2022, meaning essentially the project was required to realise within 30 weeks of the application outcome, and 12 weeks actually from the eventual planning decision outcome, which proved problematic. So that was a significant challenge. So just going to move you down. So I appreciate we are very much in the early stages of our MMC journey, and I am talking to a room that's littered with experts, but just in terms of what we as a business have learned from our first project, here are some of the key considerations that for us as an RP we'll need to make going forward. And of course, land is crucial. I think in order for us to meet our internal financial hurdle rates, land must come at or beyond without a significant cost. So perhaps a long lease, example 500 years at effectively nil value would also be appropriate. The proposed plot of land, it must be free from restrictions or covenants that may otherwise limit its use for us in alternative development. The strength of the land must be appropriate, so hard standing perhaps, which we would confirm through land density strength testing, which would for us determine if it's suitable. It'll give us then an indication of the level of groundworks that may be required as well to prepare the land. And it also would suggest what the appropriate solution for the foundations of the units was to be. And the land must be environmentally sound, so there should be no exposure to chemicals nor any risk to protected wildlife or trees. So for us, we feel the characteristics of the land are a key challenge. It's potentially our most expensive item for the development after the units themselves, and therefore it does represent one of the biggest risks to us in delivering a project successfully. Location is also a really important consideration. Access is key, and that's two-pronged. So initially, from a construction perspective, the plot will potentially need to be accessed by cranes, spider cranes, in order to place the units on the foundations. It also needs appropriate access for lorries, for medium-sized contractor vehicles, to be able to deliver to the side of the site, depending on its configuration. But then, as Guy sort of poignantly delivered, we need to think about the accessibility of our customer cohort as well, and that has to be a key consideration. More broadly, speaking around location, proximity and access to mains electric, to water, to drainage are all important. The site for us as an organisation needs to be close to our other services, and ideally within our heartlands for the ease of our management, particularly where we're looking at a directly managed proposal where we manage that ourselves rather than employing a third party. And the site should be well connected to public services, amenities, transport links for our customer cohort, and finally privacy must be considered. We would hope that the homes wouldn't be closely overlooked or would sit ideally within a fenced or otherwise bounded area for added security. So partnerships, one of the key factors I think in the success of the Fenland Modular project was its collaborative approach from all partners. So what we had was a number of invested partners working quickly, effectively towards a shared ambition from the outset. From the initial application to the key decision making right through to the award of funding, the planning and then the subsequent delivery. So just some of those key partners that we feel were required and are potentially required for any providers delivering these going forward would be appropriate management or project consultants with extensive knowledge and expertise of delivering modular housing to support and oversee the delivery of the project. Were not directly managed, so where you wouldn't be looking to manage them yourselves, then the care provider you should bring in really should have some experience of operating from MMC units. A key partner is your local authority and commissioning groups. You would hope that they would have not only an understanding of, but an acceptance and appetite for an MMC product, and also a commitment to further revenue and support funding into the longer term for the customer cohort. Housing Benefit are a key partner for us. Front-end engagement is crucial to ensure that the proposed rents and service charges that we've used in the modelling are in line with what we can achieve. Planning support really is essential. I can't understate that. I think both in respect of understanding a modular approach and trying to remove barriers, but also in respect of providing a swift and clear decision, which is an area we had some real difficulty in terms of planning decision turnarounds that really, particularly Finland, threatened the success of the delivery of the project. And then finally, building control and regulation are another key partner, and that early engagement is important so that nothing crops up at the 11th hour. And you might want to consider as well a technical project lead, who's got a background in sort of MMC modular project delivery. Just in terms of the units, I think whilst we're continuing to expand on our knowledge base in this area through our exploration of new products with new providers and seeing different unit specs with varying models, there are some key conditions that really must be met for the units to be taken forward. I think size, dimensions, so we don't really at the moment within Places for People have some of that technical expertise in-house. So for us it's important to work with architects to understand our size requirements and our limitations on any site that we're looking to develop on. As a business, I think we probably prefer turnkey solutions just for the ease of our management. I think managing multiple contractors on various elements of the development stages would prove challenging. Preference is obviously for all homes to be built to future home standards 2025, which, as everybody will know, has the requirement to increase energy efficiency for new homes and with low carbon heating. And then, of course, as we've heard today, I think a key consideration is that carbon footprint, and therefore for us, low carbon options are our strong preference moving forward. And then finally, just for a strong focus on the quality of the manufacturer, ensuring the appropriate warranties and accreditations in relation to the structures, the fittings, the roofing, panellings, are in place, and I think that's been talked about at length today. And then I've just put a little bullet about financials. So I think for us to be able to support a development, we really do need to achieve a temporary social housing rent classification, something probably that's not been talked about today from a provider's perspective. That's something for us which is crucial to make the units affordable, to make the units workable for us. We need to ensure that the costs associated with preparing the land are controlled, minimised, and hopefully an agreed and fixed price with an MNC provider is beneficial at the front end. And just, I guess, a common sense point really, but any delays to the delivery of the project will impact upon the project starting to generate revenue, and so project management is essential. And as referenced earlier, it's good to have an agreed position on revenue funding from the local authority in the longer term to support the development. So in terms of the project's reception and next steps, the opening ceremony was really well attended by people such as Steve Barclay, I think he was at the time the Chief of Staff for Downing Street. It was also attended by the local mayor, other local dignitaries and press. And so the result was that it received hugely positive feedback as a solution, to the extent that Steve Barclay asked for a paper on the project to present to colleagues in central government. Obviously then there were other issues in play surrounding Boris, and so I think his priorities shifted. But the project did feature as well on Housing Lin's Inspirational Achievements page, and it received other positive national press. And so for me, this is a personal view, but I think the key successes of the project within the organisation, beyond providing 6 vulnerable individuals with a home, were that I feel it removes some of the stigma and nervousness attached to this form of housing, and clearly evidenced not only to our senior leadership team, but to external parties what this could be. And for me, what it could be is a sensible and a scalable response to an increasing crisis. I think not only that, it gave us a successful example we could evidence to other local authorities and commissioning groups. It's fair to say that the housing sector can at times be a slow-turning vessel, and so whilst MMC is not a new initiative to the people in this room, I'm sure, and who've dedicated an awful amount of their careers towards developing this form of housing, I think even 18 to 24 months ago, and even still, to be honest, I think there's a lack of understanding of this form of housing. So even within my organisation, it's seen as a very innovative approach, but I think it is this innovation, alongside the pace at which it can be delivered, means that for us, for my colleagues who are here today, it represents a relatively straightforward business case to our senior leaders. And given the size of organisation that we are, and the fact that we've got strong access to capital, it means that we've got a real good chance of taking some of these projects forward. And so in terms of the immediate future and how we're looking to accelerate our delivery further, we have one live MMC project right now here in Bristol with Agile Homes, I think has been referenced by both Guy and Craig today. In the business plan for next year, We've targeted 2 more projects, though many other sites have been identified by my colleague James, who's here in attendance today, if anyone would like to discuss those sites with him. We're also now exploring our garage sites. So as a group, we have over 2,500 garage sites, of which 1,200 are not used, so might be fit for redevelopment. And we're now being approached, rather than us approaching local authorities. We're starting to develop an awareness of the work we're doing and are bringing plots of land or other opportunities to us, which is really positive. So just in terms of a quick wrap-up, I just wanted to summarise some of the other action that we're taking. I think that we're putting our money where our mouth is first and foremost. We're preparing to make a capital commitment to MMC and low-carbon living. We're making growing our MMC model a key component of our overarching growth strategy for our supported housing business. As I've just said, we're actively engaging local authorities, commissioning groups to change perceptions, whether that's through forums, whether it's through direct meetings that we've got with them. I recently attended a Homes England learning programme where I presented the values and the benefits of MMC. We're not an organisation that land banks, so as I referenced, we're exploring our existing sites and schemes to identify, land to build more MMC homes on. Working very closely with providers to develop and shape an accelerated delivery plan for our projects. We're seeking to create risk mitigation strategies attached to MMC development, so using subject matter experts, some of whom will be in the room today. And internally, we're now trying to influence the way that our supported housing development opportunities are appraised and encouraging a greater weighting on elements such as social impact and social value and on contribution to wider PFP group objectives such as carbon reduction programmes. So we're asking that these be factored into all the decision making going forward and are given more precedence. And key to all of this is that we're working hard as a business to educate ourselves further in this space. We're not experts, we're learning as we go, but we're committed to doing that. And that's why you'll find 4 or 5 of my PFP colleagues in attendance here today. So I hope that's just given you a flavour of how our supported housing arm is planning to progress our offer in the immediate future to solve the crisis, as well as giving you some genuine insight into the barriers and challenges that we're going to face in doing that. And so I'll just end by thanking Agile Homes and partners for giving me the opportunity to share our plans with you today, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you very much, Neil. I'm just looking around the room for Sam, who's was on microphone duty. He's over there now. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Neil? We've got one over here, Sam. In fact, why don't I make your life easy, because I can see you're a bit hemmed in. If I do the first one.
Hi, Neil. I'm Mike Anderson from St Mungo's Housing Association. Thanks for the talk. It's really interesting. We're thinking about trying to pilot something similar ourselves and make use of land that we've already got. I'm really sorry if you covered this, because I was struggling to hear some of the presentation. But what are your key criteria when you're looking at the land that you've already got? What makes a good MMC site, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's sort of been covered, and happy to share that detail with you, but it's around, I guess, the land.
Well, you can choose this one too if you want.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It is a good question. I think as part of the as part of the presentation, as part of a paper that we're preparing for our senior board, we do answer some of those questions, so I'd be happy to share that with you. But in terms of the key characteristics of the land, it's around the fact that it's hard standing, it's accessible, and just some of those other points that I cover within it, but I'll share that detail with you, it's no problem. Is that working? Yeah.
Jonathan Hughes from Compass in Wales. My colleagues Claire and Rosie from Compass. We're a social development agency, formerly the Wales Cooperative Centre, and we work with groups to bring community-led homes forward. Just a question on an MMC. In Wales, the Welsh Government, as a condition of social housing grant, requires registered social landlords, as we call them in the other side of the bridge, to mandatory go to MMC as of now, and also coming off fossil Do you see a time in England when that will come as a condition of receipt of grant, that it has to be MMC? And what challenges do you think are in the system? Can the MMC industry, if you like, or sector cope yet? Thanks so much.
Yeah, it's a great question. It sounds like some real progress has been made actually. Well, that's the way that they're approaching things. I'd love to get to a stage where that is being done in England. I'm not sure that that's anytime soon, but I would hope that they would develop thinking a little bit. In terms of us being gifted land, us being given grant towards any build, that would then limit us as an organisation in terms of the rents that we're able to charge. And so that then does make a large proportion of those developments unviable. We did receive grant funding for the Fenland project that I referenced, which restricted us to a social at the lowest level of rent, and the only reason that that worked was because it was such a significant contribution from Homes England. So it will be met with its own challenges, but yeah, I think it's interesting that that's the direction of travel in Wales.
Is that enough?